democracy. And that would be by trying to unpack or delineate the full range of moral resources inherent in, let's say, the American founding. And it seems to me that any cursory examination of the Declaration of Independence, the Federal Constitution, or let's say the statesmanship of Lincoln, made clear that this republic, our republic, is endowed with rich and ample moral and civic resources. Such constitutive American premises as the idea that all men are created equal, that legitimate government rests upon the consent of the governed, and that individuals are endowed by their creator with inalienable rights that frame and limit the exercise of popular sovereignty readily, even immediately, come to mind. Lincoln powerfully illuminated the moral possibilities inherent in the Declaration of Independence affirmation of human equality, the ways in which the fact of human equality gives rise to a moral obligation to respect the rights and dignity of others. But even in Lincoln's, I think, high moral understanding of democracy, it has, with its striking similarities to the German philosopher Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master, Lincoln wrote in a personal note explicating his understanding of democracy. There's still much that is indeterminate. Our natural rights republic, like all modern liberal democratic regimes, is rich with moral content. But that content is defined in a remarkably tautological way. So what do I mean by that? Human beings are said to be rights-bearing individuals and hence worthy of respect. This might be said to be the unchallenged faith of modern democracy. We speak endlessly about human rights, but have difficulty saying very much about the nature of man, or this human being whose dignity we must respect. So that's the tautology to which I refer. What is man? The being with rights. What is the source of our dignity? We have rights. But after that, we have a hard time saying very much about what human beings are, what the ground of our dignity is. Now, it's certainly the case if you look at some of the intellectual and political architects of liberal democracy or some of the major theoretical influences on American democracy, you can find, as I said before, plenty of moral references and moral resources. John Locke, for example, who some argue is the single most important architect of modern Anglo-American constitutionalism, believed that rational liberty needed to be supported by inherited forms of moral understanding rooted in prejudice or public opinion. He called this the law of reputation. That doesn't sound like a very sturdy grounding for morality. Nonetheless, some recognition that a free political order depends on common sense morality. The American founders generally agreed, whatever their differences, the differences among them, that Republican government had certain prerequisites that were dependent upon traditions and habits that antedated the theory and practice of representative government. A good example of this, I think, can be found in George Washington's discussion of the salutary civic effects of religious belief in his farewell address. Although you may remember, George Washington says, certain people with a certain kind of mind might not need religion, but most people, most of the time, need religion in order to be moral. So again, there's a problem perhaps in that articulation. Now, Tocqueville, about whom you're going to hear a lot tonight, famously suggested that the spirit of liberty needed to be accompanied by the spirit of religion, even if democratic religion is forced to adjust itself to the circumstances and exigencies of a democratic age. All this said, it seems to me that it is difficult to contest the fact that liberalism in practice, and here I'm using liberalism in the broader sense, not just the liberal wing of our partisan politics, but liberal as in liberal democracy, that liberalism inevitably erodes the moral capital or inheritance which is essential to its well-being. So we're back to that problem that I highlighted in my brief discussion of the conservative foundations of the liberal order. Tocqueville, the sober friend of American democracy, is the best guide to the fruit of democracy's essential indetermination. He insisted that democracy needs an art of liberty to check its egalitarian and relativistic nature. In his view, the nature of democracy inexorably erodes the moral contents of pre-democratic intellectual and spiritual life, and even threatens the essential humanity of democratic man. Sometimes we read Tocqueville as the sort of rosy foreign cheerleader for American democracy. There's some element of truth in that, but Tocqueville also had deep forebodings about the effects that modern democracy would have on human greatness and on the human soul. Okay, so why Tocqueville? Tocqueville stands out, it seems to me, because of his unparalleled insight into what might be lost as well as what might be gained in the transition from the older aristocratic to the new democratic dispensation. As the French political philosopher Pierre Mahoney has pointed out, Tocqueville's great equanimity in addressing the two great anthropological forms of political experience, democracy and aristocracy, is rooted in a deep and profound thoughtfulness about both human nature and the nature of democracy. Tocqueville famously acknowledged the justice of democracy and the underlying similarity of human beings, while never losing sight of the fact that the recognition of the equality of human beings can never substitute for the cultivation of the grandeur, the independence, and the quality of the human soul. The critic Joseph Epstein observed in his fine and pithy